Hey everyone, hey Soul Tribe. I wanted to jump on here really quickly to create a short but precise vlog. And the title of the blog is When a Narcissist Moves into Your Home. For those of you who follow me or know me, know that I work from the philosophy or the principle that came to me one day that I entitle The All is in the Small and the Small is in the All. My take on almost everything that I post, my content, the way that I work, is the belief that what's happening to the individual is actually also happening outside in the collective. That there's a loop between the individual and the collective. So what we do in our individual lives, the ways that we heal or don't heal, the ways that we work in our individual lives will impact and, really important, will be reflected out there on the planet with other humans. And so it's beautiful and empowering in the way that if we do the work on ourselves, we will cause ripples. I always say be the ripple in your life of whatever it is that's happening on inside of you will cause those ripples. And whatever is happening outside of there is a reflection of what might be happening inside of us. So the all is in the small and the small is in the all. Today's vlog, I'd like you to really, really consider that what I'm about to discuss is related to the all is in the small and the small is in the all. There are a lot of experts out there, way more, who actually focus and emphasize work on narcissistic abuse and narcissistic recovery. And in November, I have a book coming out with a co-author who wrote the book and asked me to be another voice on the book that's called Shine Your Light Through Your Deepest Wounds. And it's a book on recovering from narcissistic abuse. So I do have some knowledge about it. But let me just give you for today, what happens when a narcissist moves into your home? If those of you who are experiencing it inside your homes, inside your country, inside your religious group, inside your community, know that this is some of the sequence, and I'm going to give you what you can do, what you need to be thinking about. This is going to be quick. There's a lot. Follow Dr. Romani. Follow Lisa Romano. Those are two women. They're kick-ass, badasses who really talk about, with a lot of knowledge and experience, what it's like to be around a narcissist. What starts first is the love bombing, the promises about the future. Narcissists will feel like they really know you as a group, as an individual. They will find the places that you need to be most healed or most heard or most validated. They will observe you and study you. And this might be the first time you feel observed, validated, studied by anyone. Now, as I'm talking, I also want you to have this parallel process of thinking of what happens to groups. There are groups that feel disenfranchised, abandoned, neglected, like no one is seeing them. And the process is exactly the same by a cult leader, by any leader. This person comes in, love bombs you, makes promises for the future. Now, what makes this more fertile, the fertile ground, is a sense of neglect, abandonment, disenfranchisement. Really important. You might be feeling isolated and like no one's gotten you like this before. So it's fertile ground when we're isolated, abandoned, unhealed, and unprocessed. The narcissist can come in like this, like this. Let's say this is your mom who's been a single mom, alone, scared, neglected, overworked, challenged, who marries a narcissist who comes into your home, who has promised the whole family that things are going to get better, that they know exactly what they're going to give you, that they see you and hear you. It's tricky, isn't it? So this narcissist stepdad comes into your home, becomes the leader of your home. Know that nothing is normal. Please understand this. The rules of the game completely change at this point. The rules of the game that are not the rules of the game that are going to get played out once the narcissist moves into the home. That's the first thing that needs to be acknowledged. Nothing is normal. Do not go by normal ways of being from before. The other thing that happens is what I call the haze. The haze drops. And what the haze feels like, it feels like something gets foggy, usually through confusion. And what that is a misalignment between what the person is saying, doing, promising, and what you are feeling. So if you're not in touch with your internal experience, with your intuition, if that is undeveloped, which is usually the case in people who feel abandoned, neglected, wounded, and I have been one of those people. So I'm not talking from a place of not knowing. I have experienced relationships with narcissists, and that's how I first learned about all of this. Okay? There is a haze that happens. Go to my vlog on emotional molestation, because it's this sensation of, wait a minute, this is my coach, but he just touched me inappropriately. This is my priest. This is my doctor. This is my uncle. This is my stepfather. Something happens, the haze drops, and it's a haze of confusion because there are misaligned messaging. And I'm remembering Brene Brown, who says, clarity is kindness. Unclarity is not kind. Okay, so there is a disbelief, there is a wave, tsunamis of confusion begin to hit you, which begin to debilitate you, disempower you, because you don't know what's going on. And the idea here is that if the group, if the family group, if any group, if the child becomes disempowered and confused, they're easier to dominate through fear. And this is true for the cult leader, for any leader that is a narcissist. It is easier to dominate a group of any type of group through confusion and fear. So what happens to the group, the child, to me, to the wife, is that they become a deer in headlights because there's so much disbelief. They can't believe that now the person who was promising you, who got you, who saw you, who loved you, is now someone you don't know at all. All the rules of the game have changed. So you are a deer in headlights, and that's part of the intention, for you to become the deer in headlights. What is happening? I'm in full disbelief. These weren't the promises. These weren't the rules of the game. Okay? That is the process. The other thing that begins to happen is the isolating from others, the disenfranchising you, the group, the child, from others, the threatening. You slowly begin to isolate. The cult leaders do this. They take them away and begin a community somewhere else where there's no one else around. Isolating, it can happen to nations. You start to withdraw from other nations. The isolating factor. The other thing that's done is control of all the resources. So the narcissist comes in and takes over people's bank accounts. You see this in celebrity children whose parents take over of all the resources, all of them, become the one to manage all the resources. Of course, it's another form of disempowerment. The other thing that starts to happen is the questioning of your reality. And there's something that I call, in quotes, the sliver of truth. The narcissist always has a sliver of truth. So it's very confusing. In 15 pieces of information that you get, there might be one little column of information that feels truthful. For example, they might say something like, well, you're only responding like that because you were abused. Well, that's probably true. Because you were neglected. Well, that's probably true. So you start to question your own reality. Even though the other pieces of information are not real, are lies. This is really important, but there's enough of truth, sliver of truth, that will make someone with a kind heart or with logic be like, oh, well, that's truthful. And let's talk a little bit about logic. Nothing is logical. That's part of the haze. That's part of the confusion. People try and come back to logic with the narcissist. It is not logical. They will use the sliver of truths against you, but the games, the rules, the guidelines, the forms of interaction are no longer logical, which of course is what makes it so dangerous as well. Okay. You look around and you notice that there's other smart people, good people, mom, let's say in the case of a stepdad who moves in, who's a narcissist, mom's smart. Mom's a good person. In groups, in cults, other people that are joining are smart, are well educated. Sometimes in political parties, these are people that graduated from Ivy Leagues. They're smart. These are good people. So you figure, you think, well, if they're following this person, if they're accepting this person, even though I'm confused, even though something feels misaligned for me, I gotta go with, I guess, majority rules. If other smart, intellectual, logical, good-hearted people are following this person, this priest, this coach, parents aren't noticing that the coach is being abusive, all of that, then I must be at fault. Then my intuition, my gut reactions must be wrong. All of that is happening at lightning speed, and it's important that you know the process. The tricky thing is that the narcissist rules by fear. They will make you afraid. They will criticize you. They will ruin your reputation. They will be abusive, maybe physically, emotionally for sure, psychologically for sure. Now, this is where emotional understanding and self-awareness and self-calibration come in. Because even the people that you see following them, these educated, these kind, like your mom, what is happening that they're following this coach, this priest, this cult leader, this political leader? What is happening? Well, what's happening is that they haven't healed. They haven't gone into their own self-reflection, self-wounding, which will allow them to understand what's going on, will allow them to self-empower and self-validate. That's not what's happening in these situations. All right, what do we need? We need clarity that the rules of the game are no longer valid. The rules that you know are no longer valid. Just take that as a non-negotiable. Okay, these are new rules of the game that are illogical completely and have nothing to do with the way that you understand rules before. The way that you might understand spirituality or religion, the way that you might understand the way adults should treat children, the way that you understand your political group, the way that you understand who priests are supposed to be in the world. All of that is off the table. That's one of the things you have to understand the most. All of that is off the table and is not based on logic, and it's not based on what you know to be true. Now, this is hard to believe if we're kind, if we're smart, if we're logical. It is hard to believe. If we have common sense, if we're caring, that none of that works anymore. What that means is that our holistic humanity, mind, body, spirit, and heart are disregarded. That's not what's happening in these scenarios. And what that means is we must respond with strategy. Strategy. Coming up with a plan B is essential. For example, this happens in domestic abuse situations, where strategizing out loud or saying something or threatening to leave does not work. It brings in more abuse. The strategy has to be internal, and the organization has to be internal. Women who are leaving abusive partners save. They have an emergency bag ready for them and the kids. They find a place to go, a shelter, a group. They reach out to others and say, this is happening. Now, if exits are closed, ideally this happens before exits are closed. And listen, we have access now. We know about narcissism. History does not have to repeat itself. We need plan B, we need plan C, we need to strategize. You need an escape plan. You also need a larger group outside that sees what's happening. Now, that whether that be the teachers at the school, whether that be the neighbors, whether that be other nations that see what is happening. We need the outside world that can see that there's a lot of confusion and incoherence. What happens in people who get out of situations, whether it's religious cults or narcissistic families, is that the descent begins quietly, strategically, and steadily from the inside out. What you start to see, for example, in cults, is that there's people who are from the inside who begin to question internally the leader. Those are the people that begin the plan B strategies. Now, all of this feels dangerous and scary, but this is what needs to happen. The descent from the inside is how they start connecting again to the outside to get help and resources. This is really important for you as an individual, a group, or a nation, is to become fiercely independent. And how do you do that? By becoming incredibly knowledgeable and skillful. In a nation, it might mean you become entrepreneurial. Why? In a nation, it might mean that you become entrepreneurial. In a community, it might mean that you start creating a way to become resourceful that is not beholden on the narcissistic leader who has taken up all the resources. You become fiercely independent through your self-knowledge and your skills. By the way, this is everything that the Empath Leader book that's about to drop in the spring, the second edition is about to drop, is about. It is about how you take your self-knowledge and acknowledge them as skills that provide you with empowerment. Okay, so you learn as much as it's as if you start to dig the tunnels to plan your escape, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take organization, and it's going to take strategy, and it's going to take patience. But you begin to build the tunnels towards your success. Everything is from the bottom up. When cult leaders get debunked, it's because the members in the cult from the bottom up begin to dismantle. Because there is dissent from within. It doesn't come from the top, because the narcissist will never want to let go of their power, of their control, through fear, through haze, through the haze of confusion. So it must come from the bottom up. It must be grassroots. It must be with determination and steadiness. And one of the most important things through this, through silence, discernment, and the ways that we will not have history repeat itself, is that you dispel. You break the spell. And the way you dispel what's happening is by saying, I see you. I see through your shenanigans. I see the tactics. I see your rules of the game. I understand that they're not logical and they're not normal. I see you is the way to dispel this. And in my experience, a lot of it has to do with holding very still first. Holding very still. So that I can cut through the haze of confusion. The new rules of the games are being called out publicly or privately. Those little tunnels that are getting built for Plan B, for the escape, are essential, and becoming extremely skilled and knowledgeable of the self while this is happening, in order to find freedom and independence. And then it takes the larger community outside of us to notice that this is happening and to validate. It takes that courageous speaker who calls the parent out. It takes the community of soccer parents who say to that parent, you're yelling at your kid too much. It takes outside people to say, to validate, this is destructive and is not only destroying that family, that nucleus, that group, it will reverberate. And if you've known anything about cult leadership, if you've known anything about sexual and physical abuse inside a family, it does create ripples outside. Everything, the all is in the small, and the small is in the all. So I wanted to share that to you today with some of the steps and some of the sequence of what begins to happen. So let me just close this out with dispelling, validating yourself in your internal experience. Something feels off, even if everyone is agreeing around me. There is an incoherence, an incongruence, and a misalignment that I am experiencing. What they are saying and what am I feeling is off. This is how we know. And if everyone around you is agreeing, try and find one person who might be seeing what you're seeing to dispel, to break the spell. And don't forget Plan B, the strategy for getting out. I hope this is helpful. I'll see you soon. And follow me for the podcast, Heaven on Earth. Please like, subscribe, or comment if this is something that you find helpful, and certainly share it for someone who might find this helpful and who might be needing it. See you for my Claudisms, my blogs, my Heaven on Earth podcast.